Hello everyone, Theodore Shoebat here, giving you guys another message that you will not hear at church. I guarantee that. So I'm almost done with this book on Operation Paperclip. Excellent book. If you have not read this yet, I recommend that you do. Written by Annie Jacobson. She does a really good job in providing a lot of details on how the United States government betrayed its own people by bringing in a lot of these Nazis, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these evil Nazi scientists. We're talking about the people who engineered and developed and built the chemical gases that killed people, Cyclone B, all that crazy stuff. You're talking about the people who built the fighter jets and the tanks that slaughtered American soldiers and Allied troops. You're talking about the people who made the Third Reich dangerous. And here's the bottom line. We only killed the loudmouths. For the most part, we killed the loudmouths. The guys who were like, ah, la, 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 la. The big loudmouths, they got all the camera attention, they got all the TV attention. They're the ones who made a lot of the headlines. These were the ones who riled up the people, who stirred up the masses. Yeah, they were dangerous, but guess what? They were nowhere near as dangerous as the Nazi freaking scientists. Why? Well, because without the scientists, you have no Third Reich. You have no formidable military. You have no efficient, powerful, dangerous military technology. And so if you take the scientists out and you just keep the loudmouths, then all you got is a bunch of loudmouths at the end of the day. And so if it wasn't for the scientists, all these guys, who'd be like, ah, la, 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 they'd just be a bunch of LARPers in cafes. They'd be a bunch of freaking LARPers dreaming about the Aryan race and all that bullshit. And there were plenty of people like that running around Europe and in America talking about all these weird utopian ideas. Richard Wagner was one of them, the very famous composer. He talked about a Hindu Germany, and his wife dreamed of the day that Germany would become a Hindu nation, and they were vegetarians, and they believed in paganism, and they hated the Catholic Church. They were very evil people. And so this back to nature Nazi, National Socialist, ecologist religion that the Nazis believed and promulgated, it was developing and growing and metastasizing for a very long time. And what made Germany powerful was not just the ideology. Yes, ideology played along with it. Yes, ideology played its part in riling up the souls of the people, but you can have a huge nation of ideologues, doesn't really make them a formidable force. Look at the Muslims. Muslims are very ideological. Muslims have the will and the drive to fight and to conquer, but for the most part, with the exception of Turkey, they don't really have a formidable military force, and even Turkey is lacking because it does not have an efficient air force, nor does it have an efficient navy, though it is developing in those branches of military force. And so I'll give you guys one example of some of the Nazis that America helped. Meet the Axters. The Axters were a very wealthy family from Germany. They had a very large house in Germany. They lived a very lavish and comfortable lifestyle. They had many, many maids. Many maids. And they had slaves in their house. And it says here, let's see. It says here that Herbert Axter, that's the husband, the head of the house, Herbert Axter, a former lieutenant colonel in the Wehrmacht, had been a Nazi party member since 1940. He was not a scientist, but rather a patent lawyer and an accountant at Peenemünde. That's the name of a region in Germany, city or whatever. He worked as General Dornberger's chief of staff. His wife, Ilse Axter, was a leader of NS Frauenschaft. NS, by the way, stands for National Socialist. National Socialist Frauenschaft, a Nazi party organization for women. Oh, the poor innocent German women. They just wanted to get together and worship their Führer. During a routine investigation of the Axters conducted for their visa applications, neighbors in Germany told Army intelligence officers that Mrs. Axter was a particularly sadistic Nazi. So Mrs. Axter was a sadistic bitch. And it says here, on the Axters' estate, the neighbors said the couple kept 40 political prisoners, Russians and Poles, whom they used as slave laborers. The neighbors said Mrs. Axter was known to use a horsewhip on her servants. This information was first passed on to Rabbi Stephen Weiss of the American Jewish Congress and then to the press. Quote, this is what the rabbi had to say. These scientists and their families are supposed to have been screened, Weiss wrote to the War Department. The Axters prove that this screening is a farce, and the War Department screeners are entirely incapable of performing this task. Eventually, the Axters left Fort Bliss, that's where they were put, in Texas, and Herbert Axter opened a law firm in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So that was the end of the Axters. They had dozens of slaves, Polish and Russian slaves, and this crazy German woman was whipping them with a horsewhip. Could you imagine that? Some crazy, cold-blooded German woman. I'm going to hit you. Just hitting people with a horsewhip? I mean, it's horrifying. But these are the types of people who were allowed into America. And it wasn't just America that was giving them jobs. It was also the German government that was giving these people jobs. The most prestigious scientific institution in Germany, which is the Max Planck Institute, gave one scientist a very prominent position in its scientific institution, the Max Planck Institute. His name was Richard Kuhn. And during the Holocaust, Richard Kuhn was carving out the brains of concentration camp victims for his research. These people are mass murderers. You had people like Erich Traub, who was a very prominent scientist in Germany, who was one of the leading scientists in developing biological weapons for the Third Reich. You had numerous others. You had a lot of these scientists. I think in total there were like 1,200 scientists who were allowed to continue on with their work after the war. And even after the war, they were using the brain specimens that they had taken from Holocaust victims for their research in their laboratories. We're talking about the Max Planck scientists. So let me get this straight then. The scientists who were involved in exterminating people, human experiments, and scientists who were really the ones responsible for making a technologically advanced Germany and a militarily advanced Germany, because they were the ones who were developing all the important weapons. These guys were spared, given prominent jobs in America, Argentina. They were given jobs, I think, also in, I think it was Uruguay or Paraguay, one of those Latin American countries, Brazil. They were given jobs in Germany. I think the Russians also employed some of them. And you're telling me that the ones who really made the Third Reich powerful and dangerous, the ones who really built up the capacity for world empire for the Third Reich, those were the guys who were spared and given top positions in scientific institutions in the United States, in Germany, and in other countries. While the big guys, those guys were killed. But those guys were freaking useless without the scientists. So the scientists were actually more dangerous than the loudmouth Nazis. Because without the scientists, where are you going to have your tanks? And where are you going to have your fighter jets and all your military weapons, your high-tech military weapons that really gave Germany an advantage point in the war, fighting the Allies? I mean, for crying out loud, they gave the Americans a hell of a hard time. But the scientists were spared. In fact, the scientists were the most wickedest people in Germany. All these German scientists, they were the most evilest people in that whole Nazi regime. More evil than the loudmouths. It was the scientists, because the scientists were the ones who were more dangerous than the loudmouths, and the scientists were the ones who were kind of in the back of things. You know, the loudmouths, they're there. They're telling you what they want. They're telling you what they think. They're just blah. They're the ideologues. But they're useless without the scientists. Where are you going to have a conquering army without scientists? That's why the Americans hire them, supposedly. But I think there was another motive. Remember the Axters. Axters weren't scientists. Mr. Axter was not a scientist. Ilse Axter with the horsewhip was not a scientist. These were not scientists. So why did we allow them in? Why did the U.S. allow them in? I really believe that the American eugenist elitist within the U.S. government wanted these people in because they really admired these Nazis and they wanted to learn about their eugenist research. And so that, I think, was a huge factor in the motivations for bringing these people in. Supposedly it was the Russians, but everybody knew the Russians weren't going to attack America. But that was the bullshit they were feeding people so that they could justify bringing in these scientists. Because when the public began to find out that these scientists were being brought over, a lot of people were pissed off. We're talking about people in the American general populace. They were freaking pissed off. Hey, why the hell are you bringing these evil scientists? We just had a war. Hundreds of thousands of Americans lost their lives fighting these people. Why are you bringing them in? Why are you giving them high-paying jobs? And so the Americans had to think of some bullshit excuse to appease the people. And they said, oh, Russia. So we're bringing in mass murderers, giving them jobs, after they helped develop this powerful German empire that butchered millions of people, that killed hundreds of thousands of American and Allied troops. And that's okay because Russia. It's okay to bring these people in because Russia, because Soviet Union, because communism, right? We got to fight the communists. And that's one thing I've noticed about Americans. A lot of them. They will justify all sorts of evils because communism. Hey, what's up with these weird eugenist movements over there in Europe? Identitarianism and all this crazy stuff. Russia, communism. And they do this bullshit all the time. And it's not only a stupid argument, but I think it's an evil argument. Because you are justifying you are attacking one evil to justify another evil. And that's what everybody does. That's one thing I've noticed over the years. Everyone is doing this. The right wing is doing this, and the left wing is doing this. They say, oh, we have to do this. What? Because of communism. And then when you want to talk about Nazism with them, they say, oh, but the communists killed tens of millions of people. Well, who the hell is defending communism? I'm not defending communism, so why do you have to bring that up? Oh, because you want to justify Nazism. Oh, okay, I get it now. So one thing that I have realized over the years, in my observations, in reading history and also observing what is currently taking place in our world, is that every heresy and every evil ideology attacks one evil to justify another. Luther justified his evil by exposing corruptions in the church, by attacking corruptions in the church that really did exist, but he did it for evil motives. Muhammad attacked idolatry and paganism to justify his own evil. If you look at iconoclasm, it attacked idolatry, pagan idolatry, to justify its own heresy. Every heresy, every ideology, every evil ideology is an attack on one evil or multiple evils to justify their own evils, to justify another evil or another pair of evils or another group of evils. And that is really the bottom line. And this is, I think, the biggest strategy of the devil, right? This is the biggest wile of the devil. I will attack one evil to justify my own existence, to justify the existence of my movement, to justify the existence of my own evil objectives. So in order for a group, a movement, or an organization to justify its existence, it needs to attack an evil that actually exists. And that's what gives it legitimacy. You see this happening in Mexico. You have something called the narcos and the cartels, and they are very evil. But then you have these other groups that come along, and they're like, we need to fight the narcos. I'm like, I'm right there with you. Absolutely agree. We need to protect the avocado farmers from narcos who want to steal their produce. I'm all there with you. I'm right there with you, 100%. I'm all there. I'm all ears. I'm willing to help the avocado farmer. We need to help the lime farmer because the cartels come and they extort these people and tax them on all the money they make from selling produce. We need to protect the community farmers. Sounds fine to me. I'm all for protecting lime farmers and avocado farmers who are just trying to make a living. But then they come out and they say, we need to protect community farmers, the farming people in the areas of the indigenas, of the indigenous people. And you're like, wait, hold on, what are you talking about? We need to protect the cocaína farmers. Oh, I see. So you want to attack the narcos that are in power so you can take over and start selling cocaína leaves. Oh, so now you want to sell cocaine. So now you want to be your own little narco. And that's what you see happening all throughout Mexico, and you see this happening in any country that has to deal with narco violence. It's like you have these groups that come along and they say, oh, let's fight the narcos. Oh, great. But then you realize that this group is a communist group. This group is full of a bunch of Marxist assholes who simply want to take advantage of the situation for their own ideological agenda. It's the same thing that you see in Europe, right? Similar situation you see in Europe. You see all these Muslim migrants, and a bunch of them are causing problems, raping, killing people, and all of that. And you say, okay, this is a legitimate problem, the problem of terrorism. It is a real problem that needs to be taken care of. And you will have all these organizations popping up, AFD, Identitarian, the People's Party, and all these different groups, all these bullshit groups. And they come out and they say, we need to fight Islamic extremism. You're like, okay, I agree with you there. We should fight Islamic terrorism. But then they come out and they say, this is why we need eugenics. This is proof that the non-European man is inferior in his genetic makeup, and he is genetically predisposed to violence, and genetically he only knows his violence because of his genetics. And you're like, wait, what are you talking about? And if only we legalized euthanasia and sterilization for certain people, then we wouldn't have this problem. We're like, whoa, what are you talking about? Oh, I see, you're a Nazi. Okay. And now you're using the problem of Islamic terrorism to justify Nazism. So that's the thing. You have these problems that exist, and everyone's looking for a hero. Everyone's looking for a hero. And so all these different organizations see the opportunity. They say, yeah, we are your heroes. We are going to help you. Oh, thank you, kind sir. Please help us from these evil Muslims. Oh, absolutely. We will help you. Just, Sieg Heil in a few years after I make a foothold in your society. And so there is evil all around us. But the thing is that the evil is not going to come at you with the horns and I'm the devil, as you see in Hollywood. That's very rare, and anyone who acts like that isn't really going to get very far. The evil that is all around us is not the scary type, at least not initially. It's the type of evil that comes to you as a hero. It's the type of evil that comes to you as a group that wants to take care of you, that wants to solve legitimate problems. And then when you allow them to do what they want to do and they get enough of a foothold, they grab your emotions, they enter into that realm in which they can start manipulating the masses, then they become extremely dangerous. And so pretty much what happened in Operation Paperclip. Why are we bringing in these Nazi scientists? Oh, Russia. Oh, okay, that's fine. Just justified it, and overnight you accepted it. And you have no problem with it because Russia is the enemy. And so we have to help these Nazi scientists who were involved in butchering hundreds of thousands of American soldiers, Poles, Russians, Jews, people who are retarded in the death camps. But it didn't really matter to the U.S. government because the U.S. government really wasn't interested in destroying eugenics. It was interested in eugenics itself, really. And so you have to ask the question. It really bears the question once you realize this. What did those men fight for? The men who fought in Normandy Beach, or the men who fought in Operation Market Garden, the men who fought against the Nazis, did they really die fighting Nazism? And that's the question that I have. Because if they were there to fight Nazism, then why did America help the most important figures in invigorating Nazism and making the Nazi Empire powerful, the scientists. And so all these men fought and died for Nazi scientists. Well, did the Nazis really lose the war? Well, sure, a lot of Germans died, but the most dangerous people, the ones who made the Third Reich dangerous, they got off the hook. They got jobs, hired by America, the very country that supposedly destroyed Nazism. So the question also comes, the other question, did we really destroy Nazism? No. Sure, you don't really see people with the whole Sieg Heil thing, but Nazism is still here. It's simply masqueraded behind these nice smiling men with lab suits who wouldn't mind doing human experiments and butchering unborn children. In fact, they're doing that right now in all these major scientific institutions. So, did they really fight for freedom? Temporarily. But they never really fought fighting Nazism. Yeah, they fought this existential threat called the Third Reich, and it had to be kept in line. But did they really destroy Nazism? Did they fight for the cause of destroying Nazism? Not really. Because if that was the case, then we would have killed all these evil Nazi scientists, but we didn't. We gave them jobs. So it's very, very sad to know that all these men died so that America could hire Nazi scientists. Let that one sink into your mind. Really, let that one sink into your mind. It really is sad once you come to this realization. Because if you keep because we kept the Nazi scientists alive, that means we perpetuated the eugenist ideology, and because we have perpetuated and we continue to perpetuate eugenist ideology, that means that we didn't really destroy Nazism. Because America really wasn't fighting to destroy Nazism. Because Nazi ideology was being taught within America. Malthusianism and social Darwinism. In fact, the Nazis were inspired by the Americans, the American eugenists. All the racial laws and all the sterilization laws that we had here inspired the Nazis. So America really wasn't fighting to destroy eugenics. It may say that, but it really didn't do that. Because it gave the big eugenists in Germany, the people who made Germany dangerous, high-paying jobs. Slave owners, people who did human experiments, people who developed the very gases that killed people in the death camps, people that helped develop the fighter jets that bombed Allied troops, that killed American pilots. We gave them jobs. They ended up being settled in Texas and the state of Maryland and Alabama, Virginia. So those poor men who fought and died in Normandy and in all the battles fighting the Nazis, did they really die for the cause of destroying Nazism? I'm sorry to say, I don't really think they did. Because if that were the case, then we would not be paying these Nazi scientists. So, we never really destroyed eugenics. We've in fact have become more eugenist over the years. Hell, after the war, we passed Roe v. Wade, which has, well, it was the law, it was the Supreme Court decision under which tens of millions of babies have been murdered. So, we have been perpetuating eugenics, perpetuating Nazism, and so we never really destroyed it, and therefore it's going to come back. As long as people believe in evolution, you are always going to have Nazism, it's always going to come back, and you are always going to have genocide. That's the bottom line. This is Theodore Shoebat. I hope you guys have enjoyed this message. I hope you guys have learned something from this message. You just heard some theology. God bless, and God be with us.